you. Here we are at, it's December in 2007, and you flew out to San Francisco to talk to all the wonderful diabetes educators here. And we just published this article that we're so excited about, the crisis in diabetes education. And educators are going to our website to post their own solutions too. So I know you were looking for things, and maybe we're sending the article out again to our email of 35,000 and saying, educators, please come and post your ideas, and we'll report those back. But so, I won't rephrase the problem, but at my dinner table, at the end of the night, I met the educators that are with the John Muir Center. It's been an esteemed diabetes education center here for 30 years. They have so many patients, they do such a great job. She said they're closing them on Fridays, starting in the new year.
Really?
It feels like a cancer. And I was shocked that when you and I both spoke about this, they didn't stand up and say, hey, it's happening to us. And it's a little scary because I need to track down this famous poem about how you didn't help when they came and took the neighbors away, but when they came and took you away, who was around to say stop?
Right, right.
And when I offered to organize a group of patients to come and protest, you know, I wish she had taken me up on that.
Right. I think that was a great idea, what you suggested, and I think as a group of educators we need to protest too, and we need to really look at the crisis that's going on in our country. And the reason I say that is if you look at diabetes education, you look at the statistic, you know, less than a third of the people have really embraced the education in diabetes educators, and to me that's a crime. And if you look at outcomes, and if you look at physicians trying to have to approve what they're doing is making a difference, and they're looking at outcomes, they can't do it. If you're seeing 50, 60 patients a day, you can't do it. Diabetes educators can do evaluation, they can do management, and they can do education. They can work and follow up with the patient, and I really think the key to diabetes education is follow-up, follow-up, follow-up. I mean, you do that in sales, you do that in marketing, you follow-up, follow-up, follow-up.
Okay, we got to follow up on these insurance companies that don't seem to get it.
Right.
Because I thought, oh, they always announce the hospital closed the education center, which is true, but the hospital couldn't afford to keep it going because the insurers will not pay.
Right, right. And
we're
so now seeing more of that, though. We're seeing the insurers more jumping on diabetes education because I think they're seeing the value, but I think there's a lot of competition with diabetes education in the community, and we need physicians to really understand what education is and to refer patients or to bring educators in and to really help manage those difficult patients.
So how do we end up in a situation where the physician is the gatekeeper?
Well, 85% of diabetes is primary care, and primary care in a lot of situations are the gatekeeper. So they're the ones who
and it's a situation where the patient may not even know that they have the service. They are allowed education, that there's this great class.
I see that every day.
My nice friend that I spoke about that ended up very sick, he didn't know, was never referred. So, because I hear the doctor wants to do a good job, and some of them maybe see this as, they're doing a great job, why refer out?
Right.
Do you see that?
Exactly. And sometimes they say, well, if I bring diabetes education in and, you know, I do an hour program here, this is education. But it's not individualized. There's no way to check to see if that person's processing that information and making a difference in their life.
Everybody's different.
And everyone's different. And that's what diabetes educators, and that's how their value, and that's what they bring to the table. And I think that's the thing that we need to really articulate. This is not diabetes education, it's information, and all information is good. So I think there's a place for that. But there has to be that loop where it gets back to the diabetes educator, it gets back to that person who could say, okay, tell me what you learned, let's talk about it. What do you do when you have a low blood sugar reaction? So that we could see how they're processing it and making a difference. And that's the piece that I don't think a lot of people understand. It's not telling people what to do and standing up there and giving them a lecture or a group program where you're lecturing to them. We have to see how that information is processed in that individual and how it makes a difference in their behaviors and their clinical outcomes.
And we have this wonderful test, it's called the A1C. It's not perfect. Obviously you have lots of highs, lots of lows, and be very sick. But it seems like insurance companies should flag people with a high A1C. This person needs to be offered more education. I don't see that happening. I see the insurance executives kicking back while these centers close. And they don't step in and go, you know, you'd think, they'd say, we need these educators. We don't want to cut this, John Muir, they're cutting all their salaries. At a point in their life, like you and me, we don't need our salaries cut 1/5.
exactly. And I think reimbursement is an issue, and I think AADE as an organization is looking at that and working toward
How are we going to fix
better
it?
reimbursement, working with payers. But we need to articulate our value, and they need to understand the value that we're going to bring by looking at improved A1Cs.
How are they going to understand that? I mean,
we're looking at projects that are going to really articulate that.
I thought with
dollars
the
and cents.
DCCT, 1993, we proved
Beyond a
that
shadow of a
tight
doubt
blood
that
sugar
type makes a
control
difference.
was going to prevent, they closed the study off because the
A year early.
differences were so dramatic. What the hell happened? Here we are 14 years later, and still payers don't see that there's value in that.
But I think we have to look at long-term versus short-term, and everybody's looking at the end of the month and what the bottom line is, but we need to look at long-term outcomes, and if we prevent complications, we're going to save money, but we all have to be on board with that. And I think it's going to be education. I think diabetes educators need to toot their horn. They need to be working actively with their, insurance companies and their legislators to,
I'm
bring
afraid to
these
say
messages.
this, but insurance companies look like they're trying to make your profession irrelevant. Well,
I
how do you
think there's
respond to
some-
that?
I think that there are a lot of insurers that really value diabetes educators and warrant it. And I know in my neck of the woods where some of the stumbling block goes because they're dictated so much money for so many lives that they don't want to relinquish the money to pay for diabetes education. So sometimes the block comes within some of our physician practices because they feel that, I can do the education, the patient doesn't need it. And it's a dollar and a cents to them too.
You mean the physician is going to get more money if they
or
don't?
they have to pay out.
Oh, that's this problem with the for-profit companies being in control of
So
our.
a lot of times it's not the insurers. The insurers will pay for it, but you can't get the referrals from the physicians to refer. So we're trying to work on education on all levels because there's barriers at all levels. But I do think that there's not a physician out there that doesn't want good outcomes for their patient. So we're trying to really work together to show them that diabetes educators can really improve their outcomes, and then with pay for performance, they can get paid more for better outcomes.
Well, can you show this by the end of the year? Are you talking about studies that you're going to set up and publish?
Well,
And
we're hoping to be able to have some good data out in a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because
That's our goal.
I'm all from the patient. I was thinking, gee, we give away a lot of magazines and educators give them away. And I thought maybe we could print a letter that the patient tears out and writes to their doctor, I'd like a appointment with my educator. And maybe patients working together with the AADE or whatever new name they come up with could make this happen. What do you think?
Right. I think everybody needs to work together. I think educators need to have a role. I think, our organization has a role. I think pharmaceutical companies have a role. The sales reps have a role. And, we're all working toward the same goal to improve outcomes of people with diabetes. But we just need to close those loops and close those dots.
But, insurance companies never show up at these meetings. They're never at the... They don't have a booth here. They didn't have a table here. So I don't really see them coming. They're a big stakeholder here, and they're not showing up at our meetings.
Right.
How do we get them to listen?
And I think educators contact them. I know we contact the insurance companies when claims are rejected, and we're kind of the advocates for our patients, and I think educators just need to do that. The more they realize, hey, something's missing here, then they're more apt to do it.
When your talk, you mentioned the center in St. Louis that closed, and something in Arizona. What is the AADE doing anything, contacting those insurance companies in that area?
AADE is looking. There's a lot of initiatives, but we're really looking at how do we, secure the future of our diabetes educators, and how do we, make more opportunities for diabetes educators. So we need to know. We do know that looking at the current delivery model, that we need to change that delivery model. And we need to partner more with physician groups to really get better outcomes for patients. So it's just going to take us time to really maybe build the awareness around how we can work together. And I think what we're really trying to do is work together.